I think that time contract and a great team. Is that going to continue to happen at this kind of rate with that quality of player? I mean, I don't know. I don't know that it won't, but I do think that like a few years from now, we're going to look back and realize how special this particular group was.
The Admiral VU on Twitter, Vanderbilt fan, says, does Tennessee baseball retool after losing all those players to the draft, or will it end up like the last three winners and slump next season? Man, it's a good question. If I had to guess right now, Joe, Tennessee probably doesn't win the national championship year just next year by the odds. But can you get back to Omaha? Like, does this team have enough to continue to be a factor at the top of the SEC? I mean, that to me is going to be really interesting here. But I think we would all agree, whether it's next year or not, as long as Vitello is there, Tennessee is going to be a national championship contender. And then, Vanderbilt, with the changes that they're making, can they get back there quickly? Like, can next year's team for Vanderbilt be a team that's a factor in the SEC and a factor towards getting back to Omaha and competing for a championship? That still, I think, remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I mean Vanderbilt, like there's some transfers that we're gonna see,
Yep.
and they might make a big difference. Tennessee, you got some. I mean, I think Ensley will be back. Really, of the main guys, there's some guys, Cannon Peebles, and there's some young guys who they like, and they are going to get in the portal for sure. And I think they're pitching next year. I mean, AJ Russell should be ready to go by May. I think that's the plan right now. After Tommy John, it was a much better diagnosis than initially thought. So I think Snead will be back, and he will be a huge part of this. Loy will be a big part of this. Marcus Phillips has electric stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to be really good on the mound. I think again next year. It's just a matter of so much offense to replace. So that's just. I mean, I think it's unrealistic to think you're going to come close to what this lineup was, but I mean, I could see, again, show me what happens in the portal. Um, they're still going to be really good. I think both of them could be right around if it all broke well for either or both top 10 teams.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Tennessee wins the national championship last night. Have the Vols stolen Vanderbilt's sport officially? A lot of reaction to that. 615-737-1025. More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Pregame at 5:50, first pitch at 6:05. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds Baseball presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Caldwell Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. The Vols win the national championship last night. They take down Texas A&M 6-5. Throwing the question out there, have the Vols officially stolen Vanderbilt's sport? 615-737-1025. Lots of members of all Twitter think so last night. Joe, your boy Marty Smith putting out a tweet. It says, quote, I haven't yet read the lead I expected to read regarding Tennessee's national title. Something like this. As iconic Tennesseans go, Peyton Manning has long owned Omaha. Not anymore. As of Monday night, Omaha now belongs to a new group of legendary volunteers. Your boy, Marty Smith.
Give him the Pulitzer.
Coach.
Right.
Hey, Coach. What do you make about Peyton Manning liking the word Omaha?
Wait, Ryan McGee in the press box was. I never saw Marty. I assume he had to be in town, right? I
guess.
Think they must have been doing their show, right?
I guess so.
Coach Vitello walked past me in the hall, and he said, excuse me, can I get past you? I said, Coach, by golly, you can, my brother.
Coach, what did you make of Jim Harbaugh's suspension earlier in the year? Did that inspire you to a national title win for the Vols?
Marty Smith catching strays.
Oh, man. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
But, man, that's a terrible, terrible lead. I hope no one writes that lead.
Although I did, Peyton Manning got interviewed by about 1,000 people after the game last night. He did, and I can't remember which one it was. He did really overextend the word Omaha, I think very intentionally, in one of his answers last night.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
No, good for him. Yeah. Yeah, he was having it. What a scene with Peyton Manning, Morgan Wallen, Rick Burns, Josh Heupel, just all hanging out.
It's quite a crew.
They showed the four of them, and I was like, "Uh-oh, it's the beginning of the plot to The Hangover 4."
Yeah,
the new Wolf Pack.
I was like, Morgan Wallen was sitting next to Peyton Manning like the entire game, and I kept thinking to myself, "What are they talking about?" Like, because every time they showed him, they kept talking. I was like, "What are Morgan Wallen and Peyton Manning possibly discussing out there?" It's pretty
College
fun.
baseball,
I guess. Hey, Morgan, how was your form when you threw that chair off the 6th floor of the balcony in downtown Nashville?
Yeah, or that.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Throwing the question out there, has Tennessee stolen Vanderbilt's sport? Look, I wouldn't go as far as to say that they've stolen it. They have invaded the sport, which I think is incredibly annoying for Vanderbilt fans. Like, it's more than anything, like, obviously they don't want Tennessee to win in anything, and they don't want Tennessee to go out and win a football national championship or a basketball national championship. I do think there's a different level of annoyance from your hardcore Vanderbilt fan with what Tennessee has done in baseball. Joe, I think some of that is Vitello. I think some of that is the 2022 team and kind of the vibe around that group. But I think it is like hey, this is our thing. This is the one thing that we had that we felt great about, that we were better than everybody else in, that we were certainly better than Tennessee in. And I think that does create a different level of annoyance with what Tennessee just accomplished, even more so than like if Josh Heupel made the college football playoff this year, or if Rick Barnes finally broke through and got to the Final Four and won a national championship. I think there's a different level of annoyance just based on the sport and the success that Vanderbilt's had in this sport with baseball.
Yeah, well, exactly. Look, it's Tennessee sports too now, for sure,
Yep.
and it wasn't at all. And another thing I've seen is, so now you guys care about baseball, and that's fine. I mean, that's a response I'd expect from the Vanderbilt side, but also let's be realistic. Did Vanderbilt fans give a crap about college baseball in 2003? I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, if you have a successful program, then eventually people will come. Build it, and they will come.
Yeah.
So it's what it is. I mean, I know that there are some people out there. I mean, I thought of John Wilkerson last night, who, of course, 36th season of calling Tennessee baseball. I mean, he has seen some stuff, man. That's a long time with a program that was really struggling for most of those years. So there's some Vols fans who have been sticking it out through all the bad years, but I'd say most people who were jumping around excited last night probably didn't couldn't have named like three Tennessee players from like the 2015 team,
Yeah.
right? Okay. I mean, I I can't blame them for that personally. That's what it is. Like build a successful program, people are gonna flock to it. I mean, if Vanderbilt can get, I mean, I think women's basketball is rolling. If Mark Byington can get hoops rolling, I think you'll see Memorial Gym rocking again.
Yeah.
It's just been waiting for the teams to make that happen.
Well, I do think what Vitello has done here, and obviously, his personality, his ability to connect with his players, their ability to recruit, all those things are the most important factors here. But I do think this is another reminder, Joe, of kind of like, in some ways, what a sleeping giant Tennessee athletics have been, right? I mean, there have been so many poor hires and poor decisions that have been made over the last 15, 20 years. And we've always said throughout that whole time, well, Tennessee's got as many resources as anybody, right? Like they've got as many resources, they've got a passionate fan base. Like there's no reason Tennessee shouldn't be winning at a higher level than they have been over the last 20 years. And again, it's baseball. Football is the straw that stirs the drink here in the SEC. But I do think when you're looking at the athletic department right now, Vitello coming in and taking a program that basically had done nothing and transforming them into this, yes, he deserves credit, and he is who is ultimately responsible for it. But I do think this is another reminder of, like, when Tennessee leans into something, both from a financial perspective and with their fan base, this is what the potential is right here.
Yes. And that said, like this level of success, wild success for years now, and you get all the way to the end, that also requires something a little special beyond that, right?
Yes.
Like, so I mean, Tony Vitello is, I mean, it's, even like last night, I mean, I'm Christian Moore talking about the way he was talking about Vitello. I'm looking at a tweet right now. Xander Secret's, talking about Vitello as like a father figure. I mean, he grew up with a single mother. Xander Secret's did. It's like there's such a difference, I think, between like Tennessee fans who obviously pay attention to this program, I think, get this, but like the outside of Tennessee fandom perception of him is basically like this. I'm trying to think of the right word. Goofball, but also like it's super intense goofball who screams at umps and says funny stuff in pressers, but like there's way more substance to it than that. There has to be.
Yeah. I got a texter that says, much like the football team after they won the national championship, the baseball team will go in hibernation for 30 years. This is from an unnamed texter on the text line. Congrats on your championship. Tony, we'll see you in 30 years.
That's a good Vanderbilt response, I'm assuming.
I like that. That's good
I
stuff.
guess it could be. It could be a Bama fan or a Kentucky fan. I saw Kentucky Twitter was like gig 'em last night. They were like, do not let the Vols win this thing. I think it seems like most of the SEC kind of felt that.
Well,
way.
It was funny. I mentioned the picture that was floating around of Heupel, Vitello, and Barnes. And Kyle Tucker, friend of the show, tweeted out that photo and was like, I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head, but it's like, is there a better trio out there right now in America? Like, just in terms of, that conversation we've had of those three coaches, those three programs. And the responses were very wild back from Kentucky fans, of some people that even hated that question that Kyle Tucker threw out there. And there were some Kentucky fans that were like, yeah, probably so. And it makes me sick. I want to vomit. So there was some of that last night from Kentucky fans too.
Yeah, I actually put that on the board as a possible topic.
Oh, there you go.
At some point we can, I mean, it's an interesting question. Like you think about it, it's like, my initial thought, because Kyle actually texted me his tweet last night.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't know. Is it? But then you think about it, and it's like, it's hard to find three. And Hypo right now would be the weak link. I mean, that's what I would say, right?
I would say so.
So,
And
but
they might be pretty good this year.
they might. So it's an interesting thought.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get more into the Vols coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, maybe in with the Rex Rant at 7:45. We will take a quick Vols breather coming up next. The Stanley Cup Final, Game 7 last night. What a game it was. The Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup champion. We'll break it all down, including the Conn Smythe winner that apparently is generating a lot of controversy today. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
What stands out about the way that you guys won this trophy? It was perfect Florida Panther fashion. Nothing's easy. Nothing's easy for us. It wasn't easy last year. They did everything they could to win that. And the people that were there, Radko Gudas, Eric and Mark Stahl, all of those guys that were a part of it, they're a part of this too, right? They're a part of that. But there's nothing easy, so we needed to lose 3 in the finals to learn how to win 4. And the fact that it was so hard makes it so special.
That's Paul Maurice after the championship last night for the Florida Panthers. Florida wins their first Stanley Cup in team history. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025, our phone number. By the way, got some tickets to give away, a pair of tickets to see All Elite Wrestling at Bridgestone Arena on July 24th. AEW coming up on July 24th. Be caller 3, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Game 7 last night between the Panthers and the Oilers. Florida wins 2-1. Sam Reinhart, the game winner, late in the second period last night. Florida holds on in the third. Edmonton put together a nice push with about 3 minutes left. They started peppering Bobrovsky. And then for about the last minute, they had McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman and Ekholm and Bouchard out there so much that none of those guys could skate at the end of it. I mean, they literally could not get out of their own end because they couldn't skate at the end of the game last night. They were that tired. So Florida holds on. They win. They avoid the epic collapse going from up 3-0 in the series. It was tied 3-3, and they avoid the all-time collapse last night and win the Stanley Cup. Joe, I know you were busy last night in Omaha, but your thoughts on Florida finishing the deal, avoiding the collapse, and winning the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history?
Yeah, well, I streamed the first 2 periods, worked out really well, and then all of a sudden you're on the field trying to take video of a national championship, which, by the way, I think my video was kind of nice, not bad. I must say so myself. But and then you're on the field and you're just all the chaos, and then you get back to the press box like, oh crap, who won the hockey game? Florida? No kidding. I went back and saw what happened. Yeah, I mean, great job by them. I didn't have the sound on, but like when I saw like a Greg Wyshynski picture and it looked like there were a million Oilers fans there, but then I don't know, like watching the game, it didn't seem like it was, they must have had like one section or something, right? For the most part, it wasn't like as
I think they had more than that, but it wasn't like people were making it seem like it was going to be 90% Oilers fans heading into the game, and it wasn't that. And the Florida part of the crowd was really loud.
Yeah, but huge. I mean, we talked about yesterday. You brought it up, the potential all-time collapse, and to avoid that and to get it done, awfully impressive. You also, I saw your tweet about like Paul Maurice talking about his parents and his dad.
It was awesome.
I mean, that is some cool stuff, man. Some really cool stuff. Paul Maurice is man, that guy's pretty great. It's pretty cool to see that guy win a championship. So a lot of things come to mind. One, Andrew Burnett, and that could have been, he could be right now coaching this team in Florida.
Yep.
And potentially winning a championship. You brought it up earlier too, the fact that McDavid, it's just, I mean, he has very little impact in the last 2 games of this series, and in particular in this game, which is the biggest game of his life and one of the biggest hockey games we've seen in a long time. Gets the Conn Smythe, but man, it's complicated with him at this moment. It's not like there's any guarantee he's getting right back here to play for this thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I felt like heading into the game yesterday, he and that team were at a level where they just weren't going to allow themselves to lose. And Florida scored quickly. Verhaeghe had a great redirection. And when Janmark responded like 2 minutes later or whatever it was, I was like, geez. I mean, the Oilers, they're just battle-tested, and here they are. And then McDavid did nothing. Like, I think 2 things can be true. I think he deserves the Conn Smythe. I mean, you're talking about the 4th highest point total in the history of the game in the playoffs. So, like, it's not a Stanley Cup final MVP. It's an entire playoff MVP. And I think I have no problem with McDavid winning the award. But there's no doubt he came up small yesterday. Like he did. and he had the puck on his stick in the slot in the third period. And look, there are a couple Panthers around him, so it's not like it was just a total clean look. But it was a play that you expect him to make where the net was open, and Draisaitl, I'm interested to see if he's hurt because he scored 0 goals in this series, and that just doesn't happen with Leon Draisaitl. So the McDavid-Draisaitl pairing, I think Draisaitl ended up with 3 points in the series. So you're talking about the first 2 series in the playoffs, Draisaitl had 25 points or whatever. It was something ridiculous. Right. He was putting up 2 or 3 his production. But McDavid, I think, if you're an Oilers fan watching that yesterday, it was the biggest game of his life. I think he's the greatest hockey player I've ever seen. I've thrown that out there. But he came up small yesterday. I think 2 things can be true.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That I do think some people are mistaking the Conn Smythe, maybe not all, just to some extent, mistaking it as it's about what you did in the series. By the way, they're not playing a Game 7 last night without McDavid having some monster performances in this series
no
too.
Doubt.
So, but yeah, it's that's just it's not a legacy killer. He's got plenty of more cracks at it, but it's kind of like tennis. We talked about with Tennessee last night. When you may be knocking on the door, and there's something to be said, obviously, for that consistent excellence, and that's what you want. It's like Peyton Manning was talking about last night. But when you have those opportunities, man, you gotta take advantage, at least some of the time. And then all of a sudden, it looked like they were going to have one of the greatest comebacks in sports history and win the freaking thing.
Yeah.
And then the best player on the planet doesn't disappear, but like you said, came up small is a good way to put it. Pretty just wild how the roller coaster of that with them and with him.
Well, and now, quickly we transition into, the draft's Friday. So, the Cup final, it lasted forever. June 24th. The free agency's less than a week away. You got the draft coming up. Trades have already started. Linus Ullmark got traded from Boston to Ottawa yesterday. So, trades, by the way, the return on that was nothing. So, the goalie market obviously sucks. We talked about it with the Markstrom trade. Ullmark and Saros are actually pretty comparable in terms of, similar age. Same money. I think it was the same exact money. Ullmark's won a Vezina, and the return last night was a first-round pick, and they had to take on Korpisalo's contract. The goalie market is awful. So that kind of shows you what Trotz is dealing with right now in terms of trying to move Saros. I don't think he is trying to move Saros, but if he were, the market is not great. And I do wonder, now that they've won the title, Montour, I think, is going to be a target for teams if he gets to free agency. Sam Reinhart scores the cup-winning goal last night for the Panthers. Are they going to be able to retain him? What's that number going to be if they don't? Will the Predators have interest? And we didn't have a ton of time to get to this today just because, Tennessee win the national championship. We'll get to it in the next couple of days. And Barry Trotz had some pretty interesting comments yesterday on Stillman and Company in terms of, some free agent plans this offseason. He's pretty open with the Saros contract. Basically said, yeah, he's probably earned a no-movement clause, which makes me think they're pretty close. If he's out there on the radio saying that, I think, based on some things I've heard as well, I don't think the Predators and Saros are that far off. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some news there over the next week or so. So we're getting into it pretty quick now, Joe. If it goes Cup final, we're right in the offseason mode. I wouldn't be surprised to see some trades today. Will the Predators be involved in any of them? This thing is coming quick with the NHL offseason.
Yeah, the fact that he mentioned NMC makes me think it's basically okay, just take that number down a little bit, right. Juice, take it down a little bit. I've even told Stilly that you're getting that, and then we'll be fine. So, no, it's speaking of the goalie market, and then of course what the Leafs are extending Wall, right? Yep. So they've which I kind of thought that might be the way they go. So, yeah, there's really nowhere to turn. So I guess it's Saros and Askarov. double goalie system.
Till the end of time. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Congrats to the Florida Panthers on their Stanley Cup win last night. Coming up next, it will be time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Glorious, victorious. It's so stupid. It's a terrible song.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joe Rexrode's Rant of the day, live from Omaha, Nebraska. Joseph, the floor is yours.
So I want to talk. I do want to get back into Tennessee baseball. I want to talk to the Tennessee Volunteers fans, and I just want to say congratulations. I want to say, as long as it's legal and no one is harmed, celebrate in whatever way you want to. By the way, there is a parade today in Knoxville.
Yeah,
it's like 6 or 6:30 on Gay Street. So there's a parade for everybody to enjoy, and so
they put that together quick.
They did. I know. I was like, the parade's tomorrow? I'm like, man, you guys are not messing around. Jeez. It's actually, I think all the media who cover the Vols, though, by the way, were like, whoo, don't have to cover that. Good deal. Please do have that tomorrow. Here's what I would say. These are the things that, like, I don't know that I think are awesome. We talked about it earlier. I'm going to bring it back. Like your team just won a national championship. Hey, Chase Burns, what do you think about that, buddy? Or, eat a brick, Butch, or hope your mattress catches fire, Lane, or here's a turd in a McDonald's bag, Jeremy. It's like, I mean, like just, enjoy the achievement. Or, hey, John Curry. Well, hold on now.
So you get a ring?
Is it time? I don't know, but I think it may be time to tip the cap, right? Danny White is in the situation of having to make sure that Tony Vitello's happy. We are going to get into that here shortly. John Curry, and look, full disclosure, I talked to him a couple days ago, so this is just me promoting my own work. But we did have a good conversation because, got to tell you, man, John Curry. We all know what happened with the Shiano Sunday. Look, I do think that some people can look back at all of that now and think a little differently about him anyway. One, because he's done a good job at Wake. He's kind of been pretty consistently solid AD. And two, the reaction to Shiano Sunday it did not go well, right? It did not go well.
It did not.
But I tell you what, man, like this hire, talk about the gift that keeps on giving for Tennessee. I think Tennessee fans, if you're going to, look at people and, bring out the Henry Toto, crying picture after Alabama, I think there should be a little love for John Curry today. A little bit of love. That is a heck of a hire. And right now, if Texas were to hire, well, let's say somebody hires Josh Elander, which will happen for Tennessee. Okay. Good hitting coach, good recruiter and all that stuff. But like, is a fan base going to get excited about that? Like, did anyone even notice when Tony Vitello was hired? I don't remember it. Like, I don't remember. It was like an email in the inbox, and it's like, okay, I mean, they had a press conference. I'd love to see how many people were there.
I saw a video from his first media appearance yesterday. Number one, he looks like a completely different person. Looks like he's 13 years old.
Like a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was like him and Bob Kessling. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, think about like Danny White, of course, has credit for finding some coaches for sure, right? I mean, that's a big part of like his ascent as an AD. But this is an all-timer of a hire for John Curry. One thing, the interesting thing that he said, reiterated over and over again, is like how smart Vitello was, And that's what's really interesting is like again, Vitello comes up with just this stuff off the top of his head is just freaking hilarious, and it's just so random, But obviously, he knows what he's doing, and I'd say obviously John Curry kind of knew what he was doing. So if you're gonna crap on these other people, for whatever reason, if that's your response, you should at least also begrudgingly go back and say thanks to John Curry.
Is this your way of saying that Greg Schiano would have won a natty at this point as Tennessee football coach?
No, that's a Stilly take.
Okay.
He thought that would have been an amazing hire.
John Curry. We're giving him credit. That was his next plan.
No, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's probably as bad as it all worked out for him. When it comes to like looking back on all of it, the fact that hire got blown up, he got fired, everything went downhill, Pruitt, Fulmer, all that stuff, it's probably better than him than watching it play out with Greg Schiano as the Tennessee head coach. That was a bad idea. So now you're right. Now, never mind. Never mind. Just get mad at John Curry. Stay mad. Stay mad at John Curry.
What was Vitello doing on Schiano Sunday? Was he out there burning mattresses?
I mean, he was probably watching like Billy Madison.
No, it's a good point. Like, I mean, this is, and I get it. It's college sports, and you're trying to determine the scope of it. But I mean, Tony Vitello is the best hire at Tennessee since when? Fulmer as coach?
Ooh, boy, man. Well, Bruce Pearl.
Pearl?
I mean, Bruce Pearl was
That's
a
a good
heck
one.
of a hire.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, the Fulmer thing, of course, is. I mean, that's an all totally other topic
Yeah.
of taking over.
Wasn't really a
I mean,
hire. Yeah.
it wasn't really a hire. It was a coup. But yeah, Pearl. Caleb says John Curry did not know Tony Vitello was going to be this good, and I'll die on that hill. Go Vols. Okay, but did he hire him, Caleb?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no one else knew he existed. Okay, I mean, like you got to get. I mean, come on. Yeah, I'm sure John Curry didn't say, "I promise you, College World Series just year after year and a natty by 24. I'll sign my name in blood on it." I'm sure he didn't do that, but he made the hire.
Yeah. I mean, look. Again, I said it earlier in the show. There are people wanting to build a Tony Vitello statue outside of Lindsey Nelson Stadium already. So, I mean, again, it's college sports. There's different scopes to it, but that's a pretty darn good hire. Like when I think you're exactly right in terms of like the most popular coaches in Tennessee history. He's up there, and this added another layer to it last night.
He said first pitch, like first pick for a first pitch. I forget the context, but he said Pat Summitt, which there you go. But yeah, like and I'm not saying in terms of like achievement over time or importance overall beyond sport compared to her, but like as far as just beloved by Tennessee fans, man, right up there. Now the difference there is Pat Summitt, I think, was pretty much universally beloved, and Tony Vitello probably never will be. But I think Tennessee fans are all right with that.
Yeah, the only place they didn't like Pat Summitt was in UConn. That's about it.
Yeah, right. Because their coach is just awesome.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll continue the discussion on Tony Vitello coming up next, including a conversation that Rexrode had with Danny White about Tony Vitello's future. That's coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Tuesday morning. Tennessee wins the national championship last night in Omaha, 6-5 against Texas A&M. Taking your thoughts on that all show long. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Tony Vitello. We're going to get into his future here in just a second. An interesting conversation yesterday with Joe Rexrode and Danny White, Tennessee Athletics Director. The first national title in the history of the baseball program. We went through some of the numbers earlier. So they win 60 games, the first SEC team to reach the 60-win plateau. They win the SEC regular season title, the SEC tournament championship, and cap it off with the Men's College World Series national title. By the way, first number one overall seed to win the national championship since 1999. So 25 years, the number one overall seed had come in there and had left disappointed. It was rare for the number one overall seed to even get to the title series, and Tennessee does that, and they break through. Tennessee fans have been reacting all day. We threw out the question earlier, did Tennessee officially steal Vanderbilt's sport from them last night? Tony Vitello is the best hire for Tennessee since when? Somebody's all over me right now for the Philip Fulmer take. We clarified that it was more of a coup, less of a hire. It's not that big of a deal. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Joe Rexrode live in Omaha, Nebraska in the aftermath of the win. It was quite the scene last night. Keyser, did you see Vitello celebrating after the game?
Man,
it was pretty wild.
Yeah, and I want to hear more about what Joe saw. I'm sure he's going to get a cup of Joe himself right now. He's been waiting for that anxiously all morning. But the guys are going to need it. It was a really fun day for them last night, and I'm sure it'll go into this evening. But, yeah, I saw what Tony did and thought this guy is insane. It looked like a massacre was going on in the stands, like just overjoyed with emotion last night. And it was really cool to see, I think it is special that all three coaches, have an aura that is unparalleled to some other college, I was going to say organizations, they feel like it now, but some programs around the nation. But last night was truly special, Robby, and it doesn't negate how big of a deal this is for Tony Vitello's future as well.
Yep, so Tony Vitello's future somewhat in question. So Texas fires their coach yesterday. Joe, we've talked about the connection between the Texas job and Vitello, and could they come calling for Vitello? And whether it's Texas or anybody, like, it makes perfect sense to me if you're a big time college baseball job and you're wanting to hire a coach, why would you not at least check with Vitello to see if there's any interest there, right? Why would you not look into that if you're Texas, if you're whoever, when these jobs come open? I mean, he's going to be at the top of pretty much everybody's list. We've talked about that with Corbin, right? Like there have been other programs that have come calling for Tim Corbin over the years, and he's obviously stayed at Vanderbilt throughout it all. You caught up with Danny White yesterday in the aftermath of the championship game and brought up Tony Vitello, his future, and what that could look like with Tennessee. Here's what Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White had to say last night after the championship game.
As we look into the future, I think we can build the best athletic department in the country. I think our fan base is the engine behind it all, and we expect to do big things across all sports.
If another program attempted to poach Tony, what would you say to that?
I don't think I'd have to even entertain that conversation. I think Tony knows what he's built here, and it's special. It's a relationship between him and his players and the program he's built and our fans that you really can't replace. Tennessee baseball is here to stay, and he's the reason why.
So that was Danny White after the game last night. Joe, you obviously were in charge of that conversation. What did you make of Danny White's conversation answer to your question there on Tony Vitello's future?
Well, I mean, sometimes, like an AD, like if Tony Vitello were the Tennessee AD, then he would have said something like, "Hands off my coach, or I'm going to cut your hands off," something like that. We didn't quite get that emphatic a quote from Danny there. He's still kind of, being careful, but look, what he said there conveys what I believe to be true in talking to people at Tennessee, which is they feel like they're in good shape, with Tony Vitello. I mean, I have no idea if Texas is going to make a run at him or not. Jim Schlossnagle, Texas A&M's coach, was asked about it last night, and he stormed off and ended the
not
press
very
conference
happy.
angry, talking about like, I left my family for this job. And I'm like, we were sitting there. It's like, so your last job was in Fort Worth at TCU. Like, did you leave them in Australia? Like, what's going? What are you talking about? But regardless, I don't know if there's going to be a serious pursuit of Tony Vitello right now from Texas. Tom Hart had a good tweet yesterday. It's like, last time Texas job opened up, 9 coaches got raises. So I think the Texas job doesn't have to be open for Danny White to need to do something for Tony Vitello. I mean, you win a national. I mean, coaches get raises and extensions for like average seasons all the time.
Yeah.
ADs get schooled by agents all the time. If your coach actually does something like this, I mean, I think Tony Vitello should probably be the highest paid coach in college baseball right now. And so I think you're going to see something happen there. I don't think it's necessarily related to like Texas or any other job, but they're confident that he wants to be at Tennessee. And I don't see any reason to doubt that. I think that it's also notable, and I certainly noticed it, that Jimmy Sexton was there last night. Now, Jimmy Sexton is a Tennessee grad.
Yep.
His kid, I think, just graduated from Tennessee, and he was out there in the field with him. But he and Tony had a big hug not long after that conversation I had with Danny White. Kind of like, yeah, better pay this guy. Danny, you better pay this guy. But I think that maybe there's been some